The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone present to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the absence of clergy, let us bow our heads in a moment of silent reflection or prayer. Reading of the Journal.
In the Senate, Tuesday, March 1st, 2022, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The Journal of Monday, February 28, 2022 was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the Journal stands approved as read. Presentation of petitions, messages from the Assembly. The Secretary will read.
Senator Kaplan moves to discharge from the Committee on Transportation Assembly Bill number 8493A and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 7563, third reading calendar 242.
So ordered.
Senator Rivera moves to discharge from the Committee on Health Assembly Bill number 2440 and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 4935, third reading calendar 406.
So ordered.
Senator Breslin moves to discharge from the Committee on Insurance Assembly Bill number 8306 and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 3572, third reading calendar 488.
So ordered.
Senator Liu moves to discharge from the Committee on Corporations, Authorities, and Commissions Assembly Bill number 7946A and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 7089A, third reading calendar 537.
So ordered. Messages from the Governor, reports of standing committees, reports of select committees, communications and reports from state officers, motions and resolutions. Senator Janaris.
Mr. President, it's good to have you back in the chamber. On page 12, I offer the following amendments to Calendar 111, Senate Print 1172B, and ask that said bill retain its place on third reading calendar.
Amendments are received and the bill will retain its place in the third reading calendar.
At this time, Mr. President, can we take up two very important resolutions, Resolution 1796 and Resolution 1797 by Senator Clear. Read those resolutions in their entirety and recognize Senator Clear on the resolutions.
The Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 1796 by Senator Claire, mourning the untimely death of Jason Rivera, committed NYPD law enforcement officer, family man, and devoted member of his community. Whereas it is the sense of this legislative body to convey its grateful appreciation and heartfelt regret in recognition of the loss of a courageous and hardworking police officer who dedicated his purposeful life and career in faithful service to both his family and the residents of the state of New York. And whereas it is with profound sadness that this legislative body records the passing of 22-year-old Jason Rivera, a Washington Heights native who gave the ultimate sacrifice while responding to a domestic call in Harlem on Friday, January 21st, 2022. And whereas a member of the 32nd Precinct, proudly serving Harlem, Jason Rivera joined the NYPD 14 months ago in part to better the community's relationship with law enforcement. And whereas coming from an immigrant family and growing up in New York City, young Jason knew becoming a police officer was the right career for him. He realized how impactful his role as an officer would be in the chaotic city of approximately 10 million people. And whereas Officer Rivera was proud to be the first member of his family to join New York's finest, the greatest police force in the world. And whereas Jason Rivera was forever dependable, loyal, and kind, three extraordinary attributes that made him an amazing police officer, he will be remembered for his constant smile and positive attitude. And whereas to know Jason was to love him, he was a true hero, officer, husband, younger brother, son, and friend. And whereas armed with a humanistic spirit and imbued with a sense of compassion, Jason Rivera leaves behind a legacy which will long endure the passage of time and will remain as a comforting memory to all he served and befriended. He will be deeply missed and truly merits the grateful tribute of this legislative body. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this legislative body pause in its deliberations to mourn the death of Jason Rivera and express its deepest condolences to his family, colleagues, and friends. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution, suitably engrossed, be transmitted to the family of Jason Rivera. Senate Resolution 1797, also by Senator Claire, mourning the untimely death of Detective Wilbert Mora, committed NYPD law enforcement officer, beloved son, and brother, and devoted member of his community. Whereas it is the sense of the legislative body to convey its grateful appreciation and heartfelt regret in recognition of the loss of a courageous and hardworking NYPD detective who dedicated his purposeful life and career in faithful service to both his family and the residents of New York State. And whereas it is with profound sadness that this legislative body records the passing of 27-year-old Wilbert Mora, an East Harlem native who gave the ultimate sacrifice 4 days after responding to a domestic call in Harlem on Friday, January 21st, 2022. And whereas Wilbert Moore was put on life support until Tuesday, January 25th, 2022, allowing his organs to be harvested for transplant, even after death, he continued to serve others, donating his heart, liver, kidney, and pancreas to 5 individuals who were in desperate need of his life-saving gift. And whereas Wilbert Moore earned his bachelor's degree from John Jay College in Manhattan in 2018, during this time, he studied the effects of stop and frisk tactics and less controversial strategies like community policing in New York City's predominantly Black and Latino neighborhoods. And whereas after graduating, Wilbert Moore joined the NYPD and was assigned to the 32nd Precinct, proudly serving the northeastern portion of Harlem. In his short yet exemplary career, he made 35 arrests. And whereas to know Wilbert Moore was to love him, and if you did, then you were one of the lucky ones. He was a true hero, detective, son, brother, and friend. And whereas armed with the humanistic spirit and imbued with a sense of compassion, Wilbert Moore leaves behind a legacy which will long endure the passage of time and will remain as a comforting memory to all he served and befriended. He will be deeply missed and truly merits the grateful tribute of this legislative body. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this legislative body pause in its deliberations to mourn the death of Wilbert Moore and to express its deepest condolences to his family, colleagues, and friends. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution, suitably engrossed, be transmitted to the family of Detective Wilbert Moore.
Senator Clear on the resolutions.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Governor, colleagues. Our hearts are heavy, but we are here today to celebrate the inspiring lives and courageous actions of NYPD detectives Jason Rivera and Wilbert Moore, who answered the call of duty and made the ultimate sacrifice in this earthly plane, losing their lives in the service of making our communities safer. We are honored today by the presence of Dominique Rivera, the wife of Detective Rivera, and her mother, Liliana Cuenca, as well as the leadership from the 32nd Precinct in Harlem, Inspector Amir Yakatali, Captain Joseph Tavares, Captain Janelle Sanders, and Detective Oswaldo Collado, and the other fellow officers. Thank you for your courageous presence here today. It is our honor to be with you. What happened to Detectives Jason Rivera and Wilbert Moore and their families, friends, neighbors, and community is an incalculable tragedy. Heads hang, tears flow, and hearts are broken. Life began for Wilbert Moore only 27 years ago, an East Harlem native who excelled at John Jay College and believed in his studies and in his deeds, words, and actions that he was a community ambassador who made the world better block by block, conversation by conversation. So great was his commitment to helping others that he served us both in life and, as was mentioned, and in the very fact of his passing through the selfish donation of his organs to others. To his families, his loved ones, his friends, we owe you much more than thanks, much more than tears, much more than memories. We owe you a prospective, generational commitment to make the state better by carrying on in the spirit of Detective Moore, who has made such a profound impact on us. While no thanks are enough, please know that the entire city and state stand with you, and this is a commitment that will endure forever. To the family of Detective Jason Rivera, in particular, Ms. Dominique Rivera, your inspiring presence here today means everything to us. We share your broken heart and hope that the concern and care of others will help ease the trauma. All who knew Detective Rivera say he was born to serve our community and driven to make it a better place. He had a calling born of courage and was unafraid to embody and accept everything that it meant to be a police officer. Though he was taken from us too soon, we may ask ourselves, did he accomplish the goals he set for himself when he applied to be a police officer? Well, to the extent that he served our community well, to the extent that he improved people's lives, to the extent that he inspired others and continues to inspire, To the extent that he was a hero and loving husband, son, and brother, to the extent that he leaves a legacy that will never be forgotten, he was incredibly successful. May God bless his memory. May God bless his family, his wife, Ms. Rivera. May you find comfort, strength, and resilience, even in these troubled times. Our hearts continue to go out to you. Thank you.
Senator Jackson on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleagues, I rise in support of a proud sponsor of this resolution, J 1796, honoring Jason Rivera. First, I want to offer my prayers and condolences to the widow of Detective Jason Rivera, Dominique Rivera, the entire Rivera family, and the entire NYPD family, especially the family of the 32nd Precinct in Harlem on 135th Street, where they served. Today, we stand here before this legislative body to convey our grateful appreciation and heartfelt regret in recognizing the loss of a courageous and hardworking police officer. It seems the good die young before they see the fruits of their principled labor. They do things for others because they believe in serving the world with principle, respect, courage, and honor. Jason was just 22 years of age, a young native of Washington Heights who dreamed of changing the department for the better. He dedicated his life and career to purposefully, faithfully to both his family and the residents of our city. Jason was an affable, good-natured person whose attention to morals and values was unique for someone so young. For those not aware, Jason completed his graduation from the Washington Heights Expedition Learning School, which is called WHEELS, at the Eleanor Roosevelt campus on 182nd Street in Washington Heights. And I recall reading somewhere that one of his high school teachers, Samantha, who spoke highly of him, said that he was an outstanding citizen and student, and more importantly, a person who always tried to help other people. And Jason was one of two officers who made the ultimate sacrifice, their lives, responding to a domestic dispute where the lives of everyone in that home were in danger. The growing gun violence concerns us all. There is a serious health crisis that requires immediate intervention, resulting in getting guns off the streets and stopping violence. And I raise my voice to that because we all know it. Violence against any one of us cannot be the norm. I, like many, hope that the state's collective grief creates a sense of purpose to gun violence. Besides legislation, we must also focus on efforts in ways that would allow for us to face these challenges in unity and with our communities and seek input from them on how to invest resources to prevent gun violence through our art program, youth initiatives, mental health, and violence interrupters. A Dominican American who grew up in the streets of northern Manhattan, those same streets he would later patrol as a police officer in that community. And we have, united to raise awareness surrounding the issues of needless and senseless gun violence. With every other community member that I speak with uptown, they tell me that they will carry on his mission to restore the trust and safety of our community that it rightfully deserves. Moving forward together in ways that not only would allow us to save our youth from the senseless violence and invite peace to our communities, but it will be an honor in the memory of Jason. He will be deeply missed. Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to speak on Resolution 1797, honoring Wilbert Mora. And again, I rise as a co-sponsor in support of this resolution. At this moment, I also want to offer my prayers and condolences to the family of Detective Wilbert Mora and his NYPD family, especially of the members of the 32nd Precinct. That's his work family, just like all of you both Republicans and Democrats are my family here in the New York State Senate. But this legislative body comes together in mourning the untimely death of Wilbur Mora. He was a beloved son, brother, a faithful member of his community in northern Manhattan. He lived in East Harlem. His assembly member is there. Detective Jason Rivera, his assembly member, is here also. Al Taylor, Manny De Los Santos, and my brother there. But all of this is very important about who he was, and he was loved by everyone, and a committed NYPD law enforcement officer from the 32nd. A boy who was raised, who was born in the Dominican Republic, who after he arrived in New York City, just 7 years old, had a dream. This boy dreamt of protecting and serving others. He knew he wanted to be a police officer. 20 years later, the boy grew up into a young adult, earned his badge, and began to fulfill his dream of protecting his community. Wilbur Mora was only 27 years of age and an East Harlem native, as I indicated, who gave his ultimate sacrifice. And let me just say, you all know what that means, but other people may not know what that means. That means his life. And not only did he give his life, he gave his organs to help other people live. So today is a very sad day. It's heartbreaking to lose another young man to gun violence. And Wilbur made the ultimate sacrifice to protect and serve, and we will continue to help others and give life in his passing through his organs, as I said. Those who knew him would tell you that he was forever responsible, loyal, kind-hearted soul, a gentle giant with a great big smile that always shows his optimism towards any situation and gave you warmth and made all embrace positivity. We lost another great young man, an officer whose dreams started at 7 years and ended early due to tragedy. And Wilbur will deeply be missed and always remembered for his warmth and compassion. But his legacy, that of a person who has tremendous humanistic spirit and showed bravery when others needed protection, will continue to carry on in us and our quest for peace and love in our community. Mr. President, I say aye to both of these resolutions.
Senator Mannion on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to recognize the bravery and selfless service of Officers Jason Rivera and Wilbur Mora. Police and law enforcement are our protectors. They are the sentinels who stand watch. They deserve our respect, our admiration, and our support. When officers and deputies from the counties I represent, Onondaga and Cayuga, need assistance and support, their brothers of the NYPD are always there for them. I fully endorse the words of our president and his clarion statement that called in his State of the Union address to support our police officers with all of the resources and training that they need to protect our communities. I have family in law enforcement, 2 uncles, and I have family members, 2 of them, first cousins, who died of gun violence. And when my family was met with the horror of those 2 individuals' deaths, who was there to comfort and protect and investigate? Law enforcement was there. I know what it's like to be a family member of law enforcement, and I know what it's like to be a family member of a victim of gun violence. Law enforcement is more than a career. It's a calling, and it's a calling that extends to the families of law enforcement. Every time a law enforcement officer goes out the door, there is uncertainty. And we stand and sit here today faced with the reality of the tragic deaths of these officers and what their families must be going through, and that they had these concerns and worries every time their family member walked out the door to protect us. There are no words that I can say or anyone can say to heal your wounds, but know that this body and this state mourns with you and supports you. On behalf of Syracuse and Greater Central New York, I ask that God bless your family and God guide law enforcement, and may you find some healing and strength from the bravery of the officers, of Jason and Wilbert. The people of New York are forever in your debt. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Savino on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, for the almost 18 years that I've been a member of this Senate, we have had to pause in recognition of the tragic death of police officers, whether they be members of the NYPD, state troopers, local law enforcement, who have been tragically cut down in the line of duty. Far too many times. We've stood here and we've recognized their contribution, their family's contribution, and it's tragic and it's heartbreaking. And we always wonder, how did it happen? How can we make change? And we offer our condolences to the family. We attend the funerals. One of the most heartbreaking funerals I think I've ever been to was Police Officer Rivera. Not that anybody else's wasn't less tragic, but it's perhaps his youth, the joy on his face just from his pictures. You could see that he was a happy young man, happy in his life choice, happy in his wife choice, happy in his family. We owe him way more than he got in life. We owe you way more than we left you with. And I don't know how we make that up, but we have an obligation to this city, to you, to Wilbert Mora's family, to the NYPD, and every person who puts on the uniform every day not knowing if they're going to make it home at night, to their family not knowing if they're going to make it home at night. So my condolences for what it's worth, our obligation to those who every day are willing to take that risk that they won't make it home at night, for those of us to sit here in this room. God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless the members of law enforcement of this state. Thank you.
Senator Palumbo on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me the opportunity to speak briefly on this resolution. And I'll be brief at the interest of sounding repetitive, but it's important and bears repeating that this is again the reminder of the fact that our men and women of law enforcement are human beings, that they're family members, they're husbands and wives, their fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, aunts and uncles. As I've mentioned many times in the legislature, my father was a homicide detective. And there are sacrifices that you make even before tragedy like this strikes. They're missing the 4th of July barbecues, they're missing family events, because obviously they're on a rotating 24-hour schedule, to sacrifice their own personal well-being, putting that behind the interests of our communities and our safety. The fact that we can put our heads on the pillow at night, knowing that there are people there, well-trained, to do what they can to protect us. And then occasionally, tragedy strikes because they're dealing with crime. They're dealing with bad people, and you don't leave the house that day when you kiss your wife or husband on the cheek, and someone's going to walk around with a sign and say, this will be the day where you really need to be ready because tragedy may strike. So I just rise to give my condolences to Dominique and her family, as well as the Mora family. This is just, again, that reminder that these folks every day are doing their best to keep us safe. And so God bless the families of these individuals. God bless all of our men and women in law enforcement. And let's not forget the fact that they are there every day for us, 24 hours a day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Bailey on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, this is one of those occasions where you think you know what you're going to say until you absorb the gravity of the moment, and Senator Savino mentioned that sorry isn't enough. It is very difficult, and many of us have been to many funerals or wakes for members of law enforcement and members of other occupations, and you give your condolences and you say sorry, but is it enough? And quite frankly, Mr. President, it couldn't be enough. I just want to say thank you. And I just want to remind us that we have a debt as members of society beyond those that we carry out as duly elected members of the legislature. And it's something simple. It's something that I think that we forget. Sometimes in chambers of different parties and sometimes in areas where we have different affiliations, we have a duty to just be good people to each other. we have a duty to simply be kind to each other. We have a duty to simply remember that we only have one life to live. And in recent years, in recent days and times, based upon the pandemic and based upon these unfortunate incidents, I realize that life is in fact, far too short. And every single second matters. And it's not just about giving you condolences now while it's fresh. It's about making sure that we remember the Rivera and the Mora families 6 months from now, folks, a year from now. Likely, if our friends in the city council do right, there will be street signs that memorialize your name, the names of your families. It's well beyond the street signs or the resolutions or the proclamations or whatever the case may be. It is a reminder that we have to make sure that we stick with these families going forward. And again, it's difficult to encapsulate the moment. I want to say thank you to members of law enforcement. I want to say thank you to the families of the members of law enforcement who serve along with those members. Quite frankly, I can't imagine a vocation, or me doing a vocation, because I know I couldn't do your job. But the gravity of your job is one that you don't know what the chances are of you returning home that night. And that's something that is a very heavy weight. So I want to say thank you for doing that and thinking about the gravity of what your last words could possibly be on this earth. What is it that you said to your loved ones this morning? What was the last text message you sent to somebody that you love? Dare I say, make it count. Dare I say, make it reflect what you feel for that person in that time. Dominique, thank you for teaching us that in your solemn words. To the Rivera and Mora families, God bless you forever. To the members of law enforcement throughout the state, thank you for taking a vow to keep folks like us safe every day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sepulveda on the resolution.
Thank you. I rise to speak in support of these two resolutions. Words cannot express the sadness and sorrow that we all felt when we heard of the news of these two special young men dying the way they did. Jason and Wilbur were examples, role models for many of us in the communities that we represent. These are young men whose families, or they came from the Dominican Republic. They came here to educate themselves, did everything right, and ultimately came back to help the communities that they are a part of. Jason and Wilbur be role models and examples for many children in our community, many children in the Latino community, and many children in the Dominican community. And for that, we must always honor them. Quiero ofrecerle el pésame a la familia de Wilbur y Jason. Sabemos que dieron el máximo sacrificio en su servicio para la comunidad. Siempre serán ejemplos para nuestros jóvenes, nuestra juventud, de cómo hacer las cosas bien, para educarse, para proteger a su comunidad, para ser ejemplos para generaciones de su comunidad, especialmente la comunidad dominicana. Estamos aquí honrando y celebrando a estos dos jóvenes. Y para el resto de nosotros, queremos asegurarles a ustedes que nunca nos vamos a olvidar de su sacrificio. Y les damos las gracias por estar aquí con nosotros y permitirnos a dejarlos saber que en nuestro corazón siempre estarán ellos y siempre, siempre vamos a honrarlo por lo que hicieron para nuestra comunidad. Muchas gracias.
Senator Kennedy on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, let me start by sending my deepest condolences to the families of Detective Wilbert Mora and Detective Jason Rivera. To the widow of Detective Rivera, words cannot describe how sorry we feel as a community, as a state, and as a nation for what you've given to the Rivera family, to the Mora family. Our hearts pour out for you. Now, I represent the city of Buffalo, come from Western New York. I've always had a deep affinity for police officers. It was taught to me as a young boy, young man, as an adult, to think about those that, men and women in blue, they put on the uniform, they answer the call, no matter who it is, they show up. They don't ask questions, they just show up. My grandfather was a Buffalo police officer. My cousin was a police officer in the city of Lackawanna that I also represent. I have a brother-in-law who's a state trooper. I have a brother who's in law enforcement as a border patrolman for our country. I continue to have a deep affinity for law enforcement. On the night these two heroes were murdered, I was in the city of New York, just blocks away. I was at Rosie O'Grady's for the Irish Echo Law Enforcement Community Service celebration, honoring the best of the best, those individuals that have given so much and have reflected the values of the Irish heritage. Mayor Adams was there, NYPD Commissioner was there, many leaders from throughout the NYPD and throughout the nation, quite frankly, were there, celebrating, revelry. At a point during the night, the word went out that there were 2 cops that were shot. No one knew at that moment what had happened. The mayor left, the commissioner left, many of the leaders left. I went back to Buffalo. By the time I was to JFK, I had heard the sad and tragic news. By the time I got home, I heard further sad and tragic news. I was up till early in the morning watching as the nation paid attention to what was happening on the streets of our great city of New York. These 2 fine officers, detectives, in the line of duty, went in and didn't come out. Words cannot describe how deeply I feel for each and every one of you, family members, the NYPD family, the New York City family, and quite frankly, everyone in law enforcement in every community, because we depend on those in law enforcement to protect us. And when Detective Rivera and Detective Mora were killed that night, they took the best of us, all of us. We have an obligation to remember them, to recognize them, and to honor them in everything that we do from here on out, in our own daily lives, in this chamber and without this chamber, outside of this chamber. It is imperative that we recognize those that are out there sacrificing on a day-to-day basis, and their families who sacrifice so much while their loved ones are out answering that call. May Detective Rivera and Detective Mora rest in peace, and God bless them, and God bless your families. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Reichlin Melnick on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. There has been much that's been said today, most of it much more eloquent than I could possibly be. But I want to rise, first of all, to express my condolence to the families of Detectives Rivera and Detective Mora. As has been said so many times, we owe them a debt of gratitude, and we owe a debt of gratitude
to everybody who puts on a uniform and serve. There are not many professions out there where you never know when you leave your house in the morning that you're going to come back that evening. The military, the fire services, and our members of law enforcement face that risk when they go out. We are incredibly grateful to them here in the Senate and throughout New York State. I represent a district where there are many members of law enforcement, many men and women who serve in the NYPD and in other departments around the tri-state area, and any one of those people could have found themselves in the same position that these two brave detectives faced that night. So I hope, and I pray, and I strive, and I know we all do, for a society where people with mental illness get the treatment they need, where our streets are not awash with guns, and where no more law enforcement members face this type of occasion ever, ever again. I proudly support these resolutions.
Senator Serino on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the Rivera and Mora families, words can definitely not express the way we feel. But I have to tell you, as a body here, we have a duty and an obligation to make sure that our law enforcement is provided with the tools that they need to keep not only the public safe, but themselves. Dominique, your words that day will stick with me forever. And please keep your voice going. Thank you, and God bless all of our law enforcement. You know, we say thank you. Thank you stands for honor, respect, and gratitude. And we here have to show that to you. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you.
Senator Borrello on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. My condolences, sincere condolences to the families there. But I want to say to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, you are in a unique position today. You're in a unique position to physically look into the eyes of these families. And I hope that it motivates you to set aside the politics and the rhetoric. I hope that it motivates you to look at the tragedy that we have seen happen and to fix what this legislature has broken when it comes to law enforcement and the safety of our law enforcement officials. That's everything else we say here, very nice words, thank you, all heartfelt, but they are just words. Actions are what counts. And if we want to honor these fallen police officers, those actions mean fixing what we broke here in this chamber. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ort on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Words aren't enough. But unfortunately, today, that's all we have. All we have is words to try and bring some solace, some comfort to the families who are forever changed, who have laid one hell of a sacrifice to protect our communities. You know, we often think, just like with soldiers, we often think of the police officers, and we should. But sometimes we forget the families. They bear the cost, they bear that sacrifice just as much as the men and women who put the uniform on. And in fact, today's a reminder that they bear it even after the full price is paid by those who wear the uniform. These families will bear it forever. They're a part of a select group of people that they never wanted to be part of. So to those families, I give you my condolences. You are in my prayers. I am deeply sorry that you are here under these circumstances. I do want to thank the majority for bringing forward this resolution. It is important. These resolutions are important, that we recognize the sacrifice of 2 New Yorkers. But it is equally important, Mr. President, if we really want to honor these families, and if we really want to honor the legacy of what Officers Rivera and Mora lived for and what they died for, then we need to rethink our priorities and our policies and our rhetoric. Because while Officers Rivera and Mora have paid the ultimate sacrifice and they're gone, there are tens of thousands of other officers right now, their brothers and sisters, who are out in just as dangerous situations as they found themselves in that night. And if we really want to honor their legacy and their memory, they would want us to support their brothers and sisters who had their back on so many nights to prevent such a future tragedy. I don't want to name a street after another fallen officer. I don't want to do it. You shouldn't want to do it. And we should do everything in our power to prevent that from occurring. It's a dangerous job. There's no question about it. But we need to make sure that we are doing things to make it less dangerous for people like Officers Mora and Rivera, and not more dangerous. We need to be doing things that do not create more families whose only claim to fame is that they lost a husband, a wife, a son, or a daughter, or a brother and a sister in service to this state, to New York City, to this community. Even last night, in the State of the Union, President Biden made a point to talk about actions providing our men and women in uniform with the resources they need to protect us. That would be the best thing we could do to honor the sacrifice of these two brave New Yorkers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Leader Stuart Cousins on the resolution.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. And I want to thank Senator Clear for bringing the resolutions and for inviting the families and for the presence of the family, the Rivera family, and members of the 32nd Precinct. I want to thank you for gracing this chamber on a very different day for us. It's different because this is actually more people in the chamber than have been here in 2 years. It's actually the first time that many of us have seen each other's faces because of what we'd all experienced. And for this auspicious occasion to be the one where we are here, present, accounted for, where we are here, unmasked, and in complete humility, because you took the time to come, we say yes, our deepest condolences, and yes, words are not enough. And what we do here matters. And if what we could do would be to take an illegal gun out of a crazy person's hand who was hiding in a closet, we would do that. We can't. What we can do is honor the memory of these two great detectives, Detective Mora, Detective Rivera, who put on those uniforms, who understood who they were at very young ages, and went out every day with one goal in mind, to serve the community that they were so much a part of. My brother was law enforcement. He did the same thing when he was young. When he came back from the Marines, put on that uniform, went into the community because he wanted to make a difference. He survived his dream, and we're grateful. But Wilbur and Jason didn't survive their dream, but their dream survives. It survives in the understanding that there is so much to do in part of every single one of us, to honor the dreams of someone who only wants to serve, and to make it easy for them to do that, and to give the supports that they need to do that. This dream survives because we know that none of us can dream if it doesn't. And so we stand here on this very unusual day, all of us present and accounted for, honoring them with resolutions. The resolution, the words of the resolution, will stay in the history of this chamber for time immemorial. But what will also stay is the memory of you, of all of you, Dominique, of the Mora family, of the sacrifices of good police officers who are working every day to help us. And we commit to work every day to help keep that dream alive so that we can all dream bigger dreams. God bless you. Mr. President, I certainly support the resolutions.
Thank you, Madam Leader. The resolutions were previously adopted on February 15th. To our guests, Dominique Rivera, wife of Detective Rivera, her mother Liliana, the 32nd Precinct in the Village of Harlem, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you all of the privileges and courtesies of this House. Please rise and be recognized. Senator Janaris.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you again to the Rivera and Moore families for joining us. At the request of Senator Clear, these two resolutions are open for co-sponsorship.
These resolutions are open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose to not be a co-sponsor of the resolutions, please notify the desk. Senator Janaris.
At this point, Mr. President, I know there's a report of the Finance Committee at the desk. Can we please take it up and call on Senator Krueger?
The Secretary will read.
Senator Krueger from the Committee on Finance supports the following nominations. As Commissioner of the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, Kerry Neufeld. As Secretary of State, Robert Rodriguez.
Senator Krueger.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to take up the nomination of Kerry Neufeld to the position of the Commissioner of the Office for the People with Developmental Disabilities to the floor. I'd like to speak briefly and then open it up to any other senator who would like to speak on Kerry's nomination. Ms. Neufeld is an extraordinary nominee from the governor, so first I want to thank Governor Hochul for recommending her to this position. She has already been working at the department for quite a while and proved her stuff even before she had an opportunity to come and meet with the Senate committees and the appropriate Senate chairs. She has an extraordinary history and background in this field and in government. I'm not going to read her very long vitae, but I think on a day where we are honoring people who have given their lives for this state, and my condolences go out to all of you, that also recognizing the extraordinarily talented people we have in the state of New York who could choose to do many things with their lives, but choose public service, Mr. President, and make commitments to the people of New York. And certainly, to be the Commissioner of the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities is a calling in addition to a career. It is extraordinarily challenging and amazing work, working with the actual clients of OPWDD, working with their extraordinary families who fight every day to make sure that their family members are getting the services and help that they need. and I'm just delighted that we're going to be confirming Ms. Newfield today. And now I'd like you to invite any other members who would like to speak.
Senator Mannion on the nominations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last month, the Senate Disabilities Committee had the opportunity to question Acting Commissioner Kerry Neifeld, who is Governor Hochul's nominee for OPW-DD Commissioner. We asked questions about housing, employment, workforce, self-direction, and most importantly, how we are going to collectively address the issues related to the multiple crises that exist that are due to the fact that we are short on workforce. We asked about complex government programs with federal funding streams administered by the state. These are difficult questions, but one thing is clear. Kerry Neifeld is intelligent and qualified. She knows the agency and the issues, and she's well aware of the gravity of the responsibilities before her. She's an Elmira College and University of Albany graduate and has worked in social services her entire career, including with at-risk youth. She has extensive academic and New York State government experience, and I am confident that her life of service to others, including our most vulnerable populations, will serve her well in her new role. Governor Hochul has made a wise selection in Kerry Neifeld. As a committee chair, as a parent, and as a member of New York State, I'm looking forward to working together to deliver the reforms and results that our loved ones with disabilities need and deserve. And I am pleased and honored to vote in favor of her confirmation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Martucci on the nomination.
Thank you, Mr. President. I proudly rise as the ranking member of the Developmental Disability Committee in support of this well-qualified nominee. In preparation for coming here today, I received countless calls, seemingly countless calls from disability advocates, including the president and CEO of the Center for Discovery in my district, one of the state's largest disability providers, Patrick Dollard, who called me in strong support of Ms. Neifeld's confirmation. Prior to today, I had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Neifeld and found that she's laser-focused on the most important issue that faces the IDD community here in the state of New York right now, which is a staffing crisis. I found Ms. Neifeld to be fully transparent, entirely responsive, and 100% committed to improving the lives of IDD New Yorkers. In other words, she's here to be a partner with all of us in fixing some of the greatest problems that we face in this sector. Mr. President, Kerry Neifeld is a breath of fresh air. I'm proud to support her nomination as Commissioner of OPWDD, and I look forward to working with her on these critical staffing issues and other challenges in the months and years to come. Congratulations to Kerry, and best of luck to her. Thank you, Mr. President. I proudly vote aye.
The question is on the nomination. Call the roll.
Dabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White. Aye, 63.
The nominee is confirmed. Commissioner Neifeld, please rise and be recognized. The Secretary will continue to read.
As Secretary of State, Robert Rodriguez.
Senator Kruger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise again to move the nomination of Robert Rodriguez to the position of Secretary of State to the floor. I'd like to speak briefly on Robert and then invite any other member of the Senate to speak on his nomination. So Robert Rodriguez was an Assembly member until just a few months ago, an Assembly member who actually got to overlap a Senate district with myself in Manhattan, so I've known him for quite a few years. And he is a intelligent, thoughtful, legislator, and he, again, also represents exactly the kind of people we want to see as our nominees from the governor. So again, I must thank Governor Hochul for recommending him to us. The Secretary of State's job is fascinating because it's so diverse. People who haven't gone and read through the website don't understand how mixed bag it is to be the Secretary of State and how many different departments of the state of New York you oversee. But you know what? Robert's training and background in business and in government, I think, give him a perfect place to be bouncing off into the Secretary of State responsibilities. I am very confident he will work well with the legislature since he already knows so many of us in both houses. And I know that I've already given him a list of things I hope he will be working on as the new Secretary of State. And I wouldn't be surprised if other colleagues haven't already done the same. So in just a little bit of advance, I'm congratulating him on his new position because I am very sure that we're going to be moving his nomination this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is on the nominations. Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Those senators voting in the negative on the nomination are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Boyle, Griffo, Helming, Jordan, Lanza, Martucci, Matera, Oberacker, Ort, Palumbo, Rath, Ritchie, Sereno, Steck, Tedisco, and White. Also, Senator O'Mara,
The nominees are confirmed. Senator Janoris.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time, let's take up the reading of the calendar.
The Secretary will read.
Calendar number 110, Senate Print 484A by Senator Kruger, enactment of the Public Health Law and the Civil Rights Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 211, Senate Print 134 by Senator Mayer, enactment of the banking law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect 1 year after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 211, those senators voting in the negative are Senators Borrello, Boyle, Jordan, Martucci, O'Mara, Palumbo, Rath, Steck, and White. Sorry, once again, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Boyle, Griffo, Jordan, Martucci, Oberacker, O'Mara, Palumbo, Rath, Steck, Tedisco, and White. Ayes 50, nays 13. Calendar number 219, Senate Print 1202 by Senator Harkam, an act in relation to directing the State Board of Real Property Tax Services to conduct a study on real property tax saturation.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In In relation to calendar 219, voted in the negative, Senator Akshar, ayes 62, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 220, Senate Print 1317A by Senator Gorin, an act to amend the real property tax law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 237, Senate Print 2925 by Senator Kennedy, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 30th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 238, Senate Print 3150 by Senator Comrie, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 180th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 240, Senate Print 4450 by Senator Stavisky, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 1st of April.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar number 240, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Jordan, Martucci, O'Mara, Palumbo, Rath, Steck, and White. Also Senators Akshar, Oberacker, and Ort. Ayes 52, nays 11.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 242, Assembly number 8493A by Assembly Member Paulin, an act to amend Chapter 3 of the laws of 2020.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 245, Senate Print 5035 by Senator Parker, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 180th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 357, Senate Print 3967A by Senator Reichlin Melnick, an act to amend the real property tax law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 357, voted in the negative, Senator Brisport. Ayes 62, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 406, Assembly number 2440 by Assembly Member Reyes, an act to amend the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 413, Senate Print 1391A by Senator Brooks, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law.
Read the last section.
Section 13, this act shall take effect on the 180th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 424, Senate Print 813 by Senator Biaggi, an act to amend the executive law.
Lay it aside for the day.
Calendar number 458, Senate Print 778A by Senator Thomas, an act to amend the general business law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 458, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Griffo, Helming, Jordan, O'Mara, Ort, and Rath. Ayes 56, nays 7.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 460, Senate Print 1735 by Senator Skoufis, an act to amend the general business law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 30th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 488, Assembly number 8306 by Assembly Member Cahill, an act to amend the insurance law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 90th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 497, Senate Print 2143A by Senator Kavanaugh, an act to amend the banking law.
The bill be laid aside for the day.
Calendar number 528, Senate Print 3476 by Senator Parker, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 90th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Dabo, Janaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 537, Assembly number 7946A by Assembly Member Weapon, an act to amend Chapter 188 of the laws of 1978.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 539, Senate Print 4469 by Senator Mannion, enactment of the Mental Hygiene Law and the Social Services Law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this action will take effect April 1st.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 63.
The bill is passed. Senator Janoris, that completes the reading of today's calendar.
Nowhere.
Mr. President, if we could return to motions for a second, I want to call up Senator Biaggi's bill, Senate 812A, recalled from the Assembly, which is now at the desk.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 381, Senate Print 812A by Senator Biaggi, enactment of the executive law.
The vote by which the bill is passed.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
The bill is
Ayes 63.
The bill is restored to its place on the third reading calendar.
I offer the following amendments.
The amendments are received and the bill will retain its place on the third reading calendar.
Is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the desk.
Mr. President, I'd like to announce that it will be a majority conference virtually immediately following session. And with that, I move to adjourn until tomorrow, Thursday, March 3rd at 11 a.m.
There will be a Senate majority virtual conference immediately after session, and there's no motion to set it as adjourned until Thursday, March 3rd at 11 a.m.